everybody, it's Zach Elliott at Feel Free to Argue, and I just recently got evidence, meaning recently, just in the last few minutes, that I have become a wordy motherfucker. And yet another video over 13 minutes long. My instincts are not serving me well lately. I'm going way over. What I want to talk about, though, and I'm going to try to talk about both of these things in the same video again, because I think they're kind of related. Because I want to talk a bit about both single payer and what it means to be a healthy democracy. I'm going to take the second of those first, because I saw a couple of things which I thought were evidence of what I think is an actual healthy democracy. One of them was, had this long clip of Medea Benjamin of Code Pink assailing Donald Rumsfeld as he went to this function that he was attending. And she met him right at the door, right at the entryway, followed him all the way down this big, long set of stairs the whole time, yelling, "War criminal, why doesn't somebody arrest him? He's responsible for the deaths of millions." And I think there's a part of me that says, you know, what is that accomplishing? Another part of me that's kind of embarrassed, even for Donald Rumsfeld. But I think that's appropriate. I'm all okay with that. I mean, I can handle that little bit of embarrassment that I feel, because I think he needs to experience that. All the people who are responsible for the crimes, yes, they're crimes, of the Bush administration really need to be discomfited at the very least. It depresses me that there aren't an army of that person wherever, you know, Bush or Bybee or Wu or Cheney makes an appearance. I mean, there should be an army of people everywhere they go, a couple of them with handcuffs trying to make citizens arrests. This is, I think, very, very healthy. And I also thought it was very healthy at the Senate Finance Committee hearings, where they were talking about health care, that there were people there who were standing up and saying their piece and getting escorted out of the room, but pointing out the fact that there was no place at the table for advocates of single payer. And once again, you know, as I've stated before, I mean, the big issue is not necessarily whether or not you're in favor of single payer or not, but I mean, everyone should be concerned about the fact that this is something that a majority of Americans actually favor at this point, and a majority of doctors as well, and it is simply excluded. They are refusing to talk about it at all. And I think that really shows how, you know, bought and paid for our system truly is. And that kind of goes into the second point, where I want to talk about single payer in a way that I think people aren't talking about, generally speaking. And that's in terms of power. Because I started really thinking about this in terms of, well, what is it that businesses get out of this? I mean, why are they against it? I mean, if you're an American company and you're making something that's made in, say, the Netherlands or France or whatever, you have something on your balance sheet as a company that they don't have, that your competitors don't have. They have a you know, what's known as a competitive advantage over you by not having to do this. It's a shared cost that everybody in the country shares in paying. And you know, this is completely aside from, like, you know, information that talks about how this works better than our system in terms of delivering the same amount of health care for less money or more for the same amount. So why do American companies take on this liability? Well, it's all about the power. What does an American company get out of the current system? They get indentured servitude. They get an employee who has to do whatever the company tells them to do, especially if they have a pre-existing condition, especially if they have, you know, children who can't stand to be without medical care for a period of time. And the ramifications of this are manifold. There are lots and lots of ways in which this affects things. I mean, the most obvious and logical way in which it affects things is that you have employees who are cowed, who don't feel like they can assert themselves, even, rights that they actually have in the workplace, the few that they have. They feel uncomfortable asserting those. They want to go along. They want to not be the squeaky wheel. They want to get by and not lose that health insurance, especially if they have children, especially if they have a pre-existing condition. Or they have a family with a history of health problems. They don't know when it might crop up in themselves. There are a variety of reasons for this. Not that anybody should ever be, fearful of this kind of things, but where does the power go in this relationship? Now, everything swings all the way over to the employer, and this becomes yet another aspect of the work life of Americans where they are cowed, where they are forced to kind of put up with whatever their employer wants them to do because they have nowhere to go. I mean, healthcare is so expensive now because of the fact that it's so screwed up that it's out of the reach of most people, especially, certainly many poor people. And a lot of middle-class people view the fact that they can get decent health care as one of the things that makes them middle class, so it's terribly important to them. So I think if you look at this in terms of a power relationship, you can see why American business is kind of going along with chambers of commerce and just kind of lockstep, opposing any notion even of single payer. I don't think it's anything ideological about socialism or anything like that at all. I think it has to do with maintaining people's dependence on their employers and making sure that they feel uncomfortable doing anything that would make the employer unhappy. Like, for example, participating in a protest. Can't participate in a protest if your employer would be unhappy about it because they might fire you and then you lose your health insurance. Then your children, who need medicine for whatever, don't get it. And you never get insurance again and they die. I mean, it sounds melodramatic, but I mean, this is the reality for people. And this is the system by which people, another part of the puzzle by which people are enslaved. So, anyway, I'm Zach Elliott, and you can certainly feel free to argue.